Do you not just want to be a professional fighter, but a great professional fighter? Everyone does the same thing, so they all look the same. But how do you be different? How do you stand out and get the fastest start possible? How do you rise to the top with much fewer fights than the rest of the competition? Surprisingly, it's a lot easier than you think. What's up everybody, my name is JoseShortyTorres and welcome to another episode of Inside Team Shorty, where I'll be talking about the reality, the truth, and everything behind the scenes of the sport of MMA. Yes, the title of the video is very general and it can expand in many different topics, which is why this is titled Part 1 Amateur. This video will continue with many different parts how to be a great professional fighter, but you gotta start off with the basics. I've noticed a trend, mainly in MMA. Boxing's much different and it's been around for hundreds of years in the professional setting. So they've been able to develop. MMA is now starting to get into it with the World Championships, with the IMUF, the International Mixed Martial Arts Federation, the UMUF, where I'm from, USA, United States Mixed Martial Arts Federation, and multiple countries eventually compete in the IMUF, and you never know, one day maybe even in the Olympics. But the crazy thing is, everyone sees the big brother tactic. Alright, you are the senior, you are the varsity starter, you are the guy who's in front of me, I'm gonna follow what he's doing and be exactly the same. Sadly, that's just not how this sport works. Yes, you can be a professional fighter, but what makes you different? I'm gonna use boxing as an example because there's not many in the professional setting right now that have these type of rankings. I said not many. There's definitely one, but there's not many, and I'll get to that later. But in boxing, let's use three notable fighters for example. Vasyl Lomachenko, Triple G Gennady Golovkin, and the golden boy himself, Oscar De La Hoya. What's something they all have in common? Yes, they're all phenomenal fighters, world champions, and have created a legacy that's gonna last forever. But the biggest thing that stands out, which doesn't matter how many professional fights they have now, it still gets mentioned in every single fight, is their amateur record. All of them have an incredible and an extensive background in boxing. Given again, boxing's a little different and they can start at a much younger age. But Vasyl Lomachenko and Gennady Golovkin have hundreds of amateur fights. Vasyl Lomachenko only lost one of them. Gennady Golovkin only lost a few. And given my stats could be wrong here, but I believe Vasyl Lomachenko with 397-1. So he had 398 amateur fights. This is why he's one of the best fighters to date. Oscar De La Hoya, you know why they called him the golden boy? Because he won a gold medal in the Olympics for boxing. You have to be the best in the world to do so. Every time all three of these fighters fight, their amateur fights, their amateur records, and what they have accomplished as an amateur get mentioned every single time. Now why is that? When we look at some of their accolades, world championships, Olympic gold medals, hundreds of amateur fights. Have you ever heard the phrase, practice makes perfect? Well, still today, surprisingly, MMA fighters don't do that. From what I've seen, the norm is go 5-0, maybe 10-0, and turn professional. But the crazy thing is, a lot of those guys are a big fish in a little pond. I'm from Chicago. I know multiple fighters, not just from here, but literally all around the world, who go 5, maybe 10-0, think they're the best of the best, but they only fought in their pond. They never went to a different city, they never went to a different state, heck, they never even went to a different country to fight their best. So because they got a big head from that small record, they immediately turned pro, signed to maybe a small local promotion, and had to fight another big fish from a different pond. Now just like anything, one of those fish are going to lose. One fish will be bigger than the other. And sadly in this sport, there's always going to be a bigger fish. So they get beat up and go, why did this happen? I thought I was the best, I was undefeated. That's true, but you never really got to test your skills. You tested your skills of where you're from, and you're phenomenal there. But what happens when you go there, this place, that place, Kazakhstan, Russia, Brazil, Mexico, anywhere around the world and face their big fish? When you start facing the top of the top and competing against them, regardless winning or losing, it makes you look that much better. Because again, practice makes perfect and iron sharpens iron. You face the best, you beat the best, you're going to be the best. So my recommendation for all amateur fighters is stay as amateur as long as you possibly can. Mainly if you're still a young adult in your early 20s, stay amateur, there's no rush. Trust me, I've been a victim for complete impatience-ness, where I wanted to turn pro as fast as possible, but I was sat down and talked to, just like I'm trying to talk to you and say, practice makes perfect. Experience is key. Another example, and I tell this to everybody, if there are 10 people trying to apply for a job and all all handing their resume, who do you think is going to get the job? More than likely, it's going to be the guy with the most extensive resume. The guy that can do this, do that, has backgrounds in everything, and has been through it all. He's not going to sign a new guy. As a professional fighter, you might be signed to a local promotion, but you might have your pro debut making $200, if that. Yes, you might be fighting for free, but making $200 as a pro is honestly no different. And given, I'll get to my experiences eventually. But practice makes perfect. Now, like I said earlier, fight big fish in different ponds. You have to travel. You have to go city to city, state to state, and honestly, if it's around your competition, don't deny the fight. Yes, if there's a crazy record and the guy has 20 plus amateur fights over you, then yes, take it easy, take your time, move up to that type of fight. But if the guy's around your competition, take it. If it's for a title fight, take it. Because as an amateur fighter, winning or losing, draws, whatever the case may be, it doesn't matter. It's all practice. You're technically doing this sport for fun, and you might be technically doing this sport as a professional, but until then, you have to have fun and get the experiences and enjoy the challenges that come in front of you. Now, boxing is much different than MMA. Why is that? Yeah, we both punch each other in the face and try to knock each other out, but in MMA, we have so many different tools in our toolbox that we can't just practice MMA fights. As an amateur, before you sign pro and get locked into a contract, the best thing about being an ammy fighter is you can fight in almost every single promotion, do every single tournament, and even still go to school and compete full time. MMA involves a lot of sports. Kickboxing, Muay Thai, Judo, Jiu-Jitsu, wrestling, boxing, pancration, Sambo, and the list goes on and on. And there are so many of those tournaments out there, why not try them out? If you're not good at one style, for example, Jiu-Jitsu, you might be a phenomenal stand-up fighter, but you don't know how to handle yourself in the ground. Eventually, you're gonna face a good Jiu-Jitsu, Judo, or wrestler, or even just overall grappler in an MMA fight, and you're gonna lose. You need to get these experiences, and you need to swallow your pride and do these type of tournaments. Again, in my gym, we travel for kickboxing, boxing, judo, jiu-jitsu, all these tournaments all around the country and even the world, because as an amateur fighter, you get those benefits. A lot of these tournaments that travel worldwide, little do you know is, if you win the national tournament, you are part of Team USA. Most of the time, that company or promotion has sponsors to fund the fighters to go to Brazil, the Czech Republic, Ireland, China, and so many more places. Because of fighting as an amateur and doing these tournaments and literally fighting to be the best in my nation at that respected sport, I was able to travel the world for free and fight the best of the best. The experience is endless, and heck, free travel? That is awesome! Now yes, traveling and signing up for all these competitions, they take money, and sadly we fight for free. So my biggest tip is, you have to save money. If you really want to do this sport as a professional, you have to save money. This sport takes time. Find your sponsors, find your supporters, make t-shirts and sell them to make money. Stand outside with a can and ask for donations. There are many different ways you can make money on the side that doesn't take away from school and or training. And trust me, I've done it all. That's why I was able to compete in all these competitions and get the notoriety I eventually was able to receive. Now for me, I go to a gym called Combat Dough with head instructor Master Bob Shermer. The guy's been around for years, and sadly, as the sport really started to get momentum, he was already at the end of his career. But because of his vast experience of helping start the sport, he's been able to teach me so much. Two of the biggest things that I've learned from him to be an amateur fighter is get experience and feed your mind. Now what do I mean by those two? For us, we had two rules. They were, you cannot go pro unless you have a minimum of 20 amateur fights. Doesn't matter what your record is. Doesn't matter if you're 20-0, 0-20, 10-10, or anything in between. You had to get that experience. You had to show that you can fight literally almost every single style and still beat them. If you lost, okay, now we know what you need to work on. Alright, you lost to a boxer, now we need to work on your boxing. Okay, now you lost to a jiu-jitsu fighter, okay, now you need to work on this. Again, there are so many different styles, you can't predict after 5 fights that you can beat every single one of them. You might have the pride for it, but just like in my last video, my pride is what lost me my last fight. And pride can do a lot more than you than what people think. Honestly, most of the time it's pretty bad. So the minimum was 20 amateur fights to know that you can fight every style. The next rule was, if you're in school trying to complete college, then complete it. Finish your degree. People are so impatient, which again, I use myself as an example. I wanted to drop out multiple times just so I can turn professional. And I had a full ride to a Division II school for academics and athletics so I could wrestle. My school was free and I still wanted to drop out to compete because that's how much I love the sport. But my coach sat me down and told me, you're not in your prime. You're only 20 years old. You're only 21, 22, and eventually when I graduated, 23. What's the point of turning pro if you're not smart? A few reasons. Think about it. You don't enter your prime until you're 28 to 32 years old. That's your window of being the best of the best. But when you're 23, you have nothing but time to get that experience to get to that point. So why rush it? You might be a great fighter then, but if you have the opportunity to go to school, finish it, do it. Because no offense to a lot of fighters out there, how many of them do you know end a career early in their life and end up still doing what they did back in high school? Working small-time jobs because they don't have a full degree, because they don't have an extensive background to do whatever else they wanted to do. Their plan B, for example. I'm not saying you're not going to be a phenomenal fighter, but sometimes life hits hard. A few things are, you might not be the fighter you think you are, or you think you can be. You might suffer an injury where you take months off, or even have to end your career very, very early and not ever get the chance to be the fighter you want to be. So what do you fall back on? Sadly, most fighters nothing, and they do personal training and small-time jobs just to get by, instead of having an extensive college degree to get that backup job that is well deserved just in case. Now, my coach Master Bob taught me a lot. Because of him, I've been able to do so much in my amateur career that now I've been called one of the pioneers of amateur MMA. For people who don't know about me, my amateur career doesn't just go in MMA. It goes in kickboxing. I have multiple world championships, an international championship, 2-time Pan American gold medalist in Brazil. I've competed in Muay Thai and won a national championship. I competed in wrestling 4 years in high school and 5 years in college, being a college All-American and getting more than 100+ collegiate wins against all types of competition. I've done pancration fights. I've competed in jiu-jitsu, and obviously I've competed in MMA, but I didn't do just 5, not 10, but I did 26 amateur MMA fights. When I say travel, I say it from experience. I fought almost 10 fights in Chicago alone, which is great, and I solidified that I was the big fish in a little pond. But eventually I started to travel. I've competed in Florida, Brazil, the Czech Republic, Missouri, New York, Wisconsin, and so many different states and countries that it is really, really incredible where this sport has taken me. I've been able to find sponsors, get funding, and do this all while still completing a college degree, which my degree was in leadership and exercise science, which I'm happy that I was able to graduate with, being the very first person in my family to graduate with a college degree. Now, with my 25-1 amateur record, again, I competed all over, but my biggest notable wins in that sport is 2-time UMUF national champion, and eventually competing at Worlds to be the first ever back-to-back 2-time IMUF world champion. And honestly, because of these 2 medals, I was able to get signed to Titan FC immediately. Titan FC is not a local promotion. It is not that semi-pro promotion. It is a feeder promotion, that one right below where I'm at today, the UFC. Everyone in Titan FC is a UFC caliber fighter, but that's their time to shine. Titan FC for most is a make it or break it. If you become a champion in Titan, you're more than likely getting called. And eventually with me, 5 title fights, with 3 of them being title defenses, I finally got my long-awaited UFC debut. Even now, as a UFC fighter, my amateur career still comes up in the accolades. How fast do you think I did that? Usually people take years. Conor McGregor didn't win his first 2 world championships in Cage Warriors until he was 14-2. I did it at 5-0. I won my first one at 3-0, defended my first one at 4-0, won the second one at 5-0, defended the second weight class at 6-0, and defended the original weight class at 7-0. Conor McGregor is a phenomenal fighter, and he's shown the path for a lot of fighters like myself. But because of my extensive amateur career, I was respected that much more, and I was able to move up that much faster earlier in my career. My first world championship was at 3-0. Why do you think that happened? Not because the weight class didn't have any good fighters, because they knew of my extensive amateur background that I could handle myself. My first world championship, I'm only 2 fights in, the guy was 7-2. My title defense was a UFC veteran at 18-2. I was only 3-0, and I knocked him out in 86 seconds. It's awesome to know that I've become a pioneer in amateur MMA and shown the path of how to be a successful professional fighter. I didn't get paid $200 my UFC debut. I got paid a lot more. You know why? Because I was respected. No one respects that same clone walking through the door, but their eyes are going to open when they see something different, something they've never seen before. Being an amateur, that's your time to shine. That's your time to, 1, explore your fighting style and find out the person you really are, but then show people what you can really do. Win all these world titles, travel beating the best of the best, and show that eventually you can be a UFC fighter, nevertheless a UFC champion. Now, I'm not bragging, but my extensive amateur career didn't just give me the reputation and resume I have today, but it prepared me for the tougher competition to come. I was able to fight so many different styles that no matter what's in front of me, everything seems at least somewhat familiar, and I'm that much more ready and prepared to fight and or knock them out. Practice makes perfect, and enjoy the journey while it lasts. Because trust me, I still wish I was amateur. Being pro, there's a lot of pressure. Have fun with it and see where it goes from there. If you lose, it's okay. Keep on going and try again. Because once you turn pro, that loss will always be there. So might as well ensure yourself the best possible chances as a pro compared to not practicing at all and just winging it. Again, this is part 1 on how to be a great professional fighter, and many parts will be coming soon, but let's start it off with the basics. What's step 1? Your amateur career. No one is a natural. Yes, some might be better than others, but skill with practice will be talent any day. So again, use your skill, be smart, be patient, and use your time wisely. Don't make excuses, and that's why I always say, if this shorty can do it, then why can't you? If there's anything I missed of having a successful amateur career to ensure a great professional career, please leave in the comments below. And again, follow my social media at JoseShortyTorres for Instagram, ShortyTorres125 for Twitter, and JoseShortyTorres with quotations around Shorty on Facebook. Also, visit TeamShorty.com for any merchandise. Everything ships worldwide, and all is on clearance right now. First come, first serve. And remember, we can, we will, together we are Team Shorty. Thank you so much, everyone, for all the support, and this was another episode of Inside Team Shorty.
So